What's going on, guys? Magnolia Mo here, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to unbox the Pioneer Elite VSX-LX505. I got this from Best Buy, part of their holiday deal. It is $899.99, and this was the last one in the store that I was able to pick up earlier today. I'm excited, and let's get on with it. Inside the box, we have the power cord. You have the remote control. You have an accessories bag with the product information, the setup mic, an AM antenna, got the FM antenna, you got two AAA batteries for the remote control. You have safety information booklet, a web page guide for the Chromecast that's built in, and a quick start initial setup guide. Presenting the Pioneer Elite VSX-LX505 for $899.99. It is a 9.2 channel receiver with capability for 11.2 using the pre-outs. So from an amplifier standpoint, it can power 9 channels. You need, if you want to do the full 11 channels, then you do need to add another amplifier. Let's take a closer look. So you got the top of the receiver right here. It's got Bluetooth, DTS Play-Fi, DTS-X logo, IMAX Enhanced logo, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, Wi-Fi, HDMI, and direct. That is the main purpose of me purchasing this. Here you have the volume knob. There's a nice feel to it. Pioneer's MCACC logo. That is their advanced room EQ setup that they use. Obviously, it's a network receiver, and on this side you have your input selector and the power button. Behind the Elite, this cover, you got your HDMI input, auxiliary input, you have a USB input, you have your setup mic input, headphones, and then you got the various controls, right? You can access the full menu right from the front right here by hitting the home button, and then you can navigate through. You got your zone 2 on off, zone control button, dimmer, auto direct for DSP processing, surround, and then you got your presets. And here's the back of the receiver. You got your AC in, and then let's start from the left here. You have your front right, front left, center, surround, right left, height 1, right left, and then surround back, right left, and then you got your zone 2. So with this particular receiver, if you're gonna use zone 2, you will lose the surround back capability. The surround back also doubles up as height 2 or zone 3, which means you lose the surround back in favor of your height 2, and then your height 1 doubles up as for bi-amp capabilities if you don't want to use, your height speakers here, right? And then just going down the line here below, you got your pre-outs. You have your left, right, front, center, surround, height 1, surround back, subwoofer, and then you got your height 2 or zone 3 or zone B or zone 2 line outs. These are the pre-outs. So this is what I ultimately intend to use, is the pre-outs here for a full 11.1 setup. And then staying on this side, you have your Bluetooth and Wi-Fi antennas, both of them, there's two of them. And you have your USB, which is a 5 volt 1 amp. You have your network input, and you got 6 HDMIs plus the one in the front. You got 7 HDMI inputs on this one. For outputs, you have your main and you have your zone 2 or your sub out, right? And these are both 8K capable. So this will go into my Sony 77A80J, and then the second HDMI output, which is also 8K capable, is gonna go into my projector. So staying down here, you got your 12 volt trigger outs, you got your RS-232C control, you got your IR in and out, and then analog video inputs, which are assignable, and then you got your component video input, which is also assignable. And then to the left of it, you have your AM loop antenna, you got your FM antenna input, and then you have your digital coax and an optical input. These are all assignable 1 through 4. These are all your audio inputs. I am going to use at least one of them or two of them, the phono and the other one for my PC, for my DAC. All right, and I believe that is it.
Now let's get into the initial setup of this receiver. Downloading the Pioneer remote app makes the setup go much faster and much smoother. So I do recommend that before you start setting this up, download the Pioneer remote app, and then the Google Home app also assists with the Wi-Fi setup of the receiver during this particular initial setup process. That will make this entire setup process go much faster and much smoother, like I said earlier. On the next screen, you will see the various steps that this setup process is going to cover, right? The speaker setup, multi-zone, sound check, ARC setup, direct live, or full auto MC ACC. And then here is where you select the speaker configuration. We're going to go with the 7.1.4 configuration with top fronts and top rears. And then here you have just confirmation of the layout that you have selected. And now it's time to just do a quick test of the speakers. So the receiver then sends out test tones through all of your speakers to make sure that everything is wired correctly.
This is just to make sure that all of the speakers are turned on.
And guess what? The amplifier to power my back surrounds was not on, so I had to turn it on. And then after that, we moved to the Alexa setup, which I chose to forego. I hit skip on that. Next, I confirmed that I heard all of the sound from all of the speakers. And then it was time for ARC/EARC setup, which I initialized. At this point, I exited the direct live setup because I wanted to actually go in and set up the rest of the receiver. Under the TV out on-screen display, the first option obviously is HDMI out, which is main. I turn upscaling off. HDMI 4K, 8K signal format. Here you can specify the resolution of each input. The next is zone 2 HDMI on-screen language, which I, just left it as default. And then screensaver, you can pick your own screensaver while using the Pioneer remote app. There are plenty of screensavers to pick from. I just basically went with the default here. All right, and then the next section is your video inputs and digital audio inputs. These are analog video and inputs that you can assign. I did not need to use them, so I left them at default. And then you have your digital audio inputs, which I also left at default settings. For analog audio input, I assigned the CD analog audio input to my DAC. Then for input skipping, I'm not skipping any inputs, so they're all active. And then this is the best part right here. You can set your personal presets starting with the input that you want selected, with each preset, HDMI output, listening mode, volume, multi-zone. That's a nice little touch to have with their remote. Next, we're gonna go into the speaker setup menu, and here you can set up your configuration, your channel levels, your crossover, your distance, and your speaker virtualizer. As mentioned earlier, I'm gonna go with the 7.1.4 setup for distances, for crossover settings. Direct Live set all my speakers to large. Obviously that's incorrect. I did change it to small at that 80 Hertz crossover. And then Direct Live also set up the distances. These are all in milliseconds, and that represents the delay. Basically, time in milliseconds that it takes for the sound to reach your ears. All right, and then the rest is the channel levels were all set up by Direct Live. I'm not going to get into that. Let's go into Audio Adjust. This is where you're going to set up your dual mono. Like, do you want to output it into stereo or 2 channels? Dolby setup. This is where you'll find the loudness management, which is like dynamic EQ on the Marantz and Denon receivers. I left that off. And then the IMAX mode. Default is auto for IMAX mode and user settings. I set that to on because with the DTS flag, you can force IMAX audio processing onto the soundtrack, right? And I'm gonna experiment with that, and then hopefully have a separate video on that later on. And then you have IMAX user setting as auto or manual. Just remember, if you turn it to manual, then all of the bass from your speakers, all of your speakers is going to be redirected to the subwoofers, and that tends to get a little heavy and not natural, right? So that's your choice. I would prefer to leave it to auto. Next, you have your volume settings. So mute level, volume limit, power on level. I like to keep the power on level at a minimum. Just in case, right? And then the volume limit, you can set that to 0 or whatever you prefer. I just leave it as off. And then you have your source, input volume absorber, name edit, audio select. Input volume absorber essentially levels the volumes of the various inputs on your receiver. Name edit is a good feature to have. You can rename your inputs, right, to Apple TV or Blu-ray display, whatever you like. And then audio select is the last option, which basically is going to be, in our case, it's just HDMI. And then for hardware, this is where you're going to find your trigger outs. Obviously HDMI is the first option in there, which we're going to do HDMI CEC, and audio return channel EARC support is on, auto delay is on. And then you have power management options for your USB, Bluetooth, network standby. And then the next option here is the 12-volt trigger, which is useful for me because I'm trying to power an external amplifier, and this is where you go and you turn on the inputs where you want the power amplifier to turn on. Same thing applies to 12-volt trigger B, and the Pioneer Elite works with Sonos. I don't have it, so I'm not gonna set that up. So that was it. That was the unboxing and the initial setup. On purpose, I did not go over the Direct Live setup because that is a separate video. Be on the lookout for it over the next week or so. One thing that you have to be careful of when you're setting up the Pioneer Elite is if you're looking to power 11 channels, right? If you have just nine channels, you're fine, right? No issues. But if you're looking to power 11 channels, the only 2 speakers that you can power with the external amp are the back surrounds. I learned it the hard way, right? I'm Magnolia Mo. I don't read manuals. And I'm sitting there trying to figure this out, thinking that there's a setting in the Pioneer that would let me redirect to the channels that I want, but there was no setting, and I was just baffled, and I wasted a lot of time, and ultimately I did go to the manual, and that it was right there in the manual. you need to power your back surrounds with the external amp. So it's not as flexible as the Denons or the Marantz, right? When it comes to the pre-out usage. Also, who does back surrounds? It would make sense to do your front speakers, if anything, to an external amp. But whatever, that's the case. So just be mindful of that. All right. So 2 things. Be on the lookout for the direct live setup video in the next week or so, and then my full review of this receiver from a sound quality, from a usability standpoint. All right, guys. So as usual, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And I will see you guys in the next one.